Number 11. Murderous Son. Brian Peck, 60 years old, was convicted in February 2022 of murdering his mother, 76-year-old Gail Peck, which he claimed he committed in self-defense after she allegedly approached him with a huge knife for playing his music so loudly. Peck testified in court that he threw his mother to the ground and stomped on her until she died. He then dissected his mother's body and dumped parts of it into Lake Michigan. He put the other parts in a duffel bag filled with stone bricks and dumped them in Chicago's Lagoon Park. A fisherman discovered the decomposing body pieces. On October 27, 2017, Peck reported Gail missing to the Elgin Police Department, claiming she had not come home after walking her dog. He was apprehended on October 31, 2017. Peck was sentenced to 50 years in prison for first-degree murder, 20 years for dismemberment, and 5 years for concealing her death. The judge noted in court that Peck had irreparable depravity, and the worst part was listening to him testify about how he sawed her into pieces with no emotions at all. He will now spend the rest of his life in prison. Number 10. Frying Pan. In August 2012, 37-year-old Nora Leach Peterson from Elgin, Chicago attacked her boyfriend. She struck him in the head repeatedly with a frying pan until he was no longer breathing. Nora and 55-year-old Michael N. Mielzarek got into an argument in the apartment they shared in the 100 block of South State Street. Things escalated pretty quickly and Nora began throwing things at Michael. When that wasn't making her feel better, she picked up a frying pan and began her vicious beatdown. After being hit multiple times, Michael fell to the floor, hit his head again on the way down, and died. Nora called 911, but it was too late. An autopsy later revealed that he had died from blunt force trauma to the head caused by the fall. But he wouldn't have fallen if Nora hadn't been hitting him on the head with a frying pan. Nora was accused of first-degree murder and sentenced to a minimum of 22 years in prison. Number 9. Chicago Rippers. Robin Gecht, along with her brothers Andrew and Thomas Corraleus and Edward Spreitzer, carried out a series of heinous murders in Chicago and the surrounding area in the early 1980s. They were known collectively as the Chicago Rippers, or the Ripper Crew. They mistreated and mutilated women, as well as cannibalized and desecrated their corpses after killing them. While operating as a satanic cult, they were said to take sadistic pleasure in their crimes. Gecht, the group's eldest at 30 years old, was recognized as the mastermind and leader, with one detective working on the case later remarking that he made, quote, Manson appear like a Boy Scout. The Rippers were implicated in the disappearances of 17 women, as well as the unconnected random drive-by fatal shooting of Rafael Tirado, a 28-year-old drug dealer. On May 23, 1981, Gecht and the others claimed their first victim, 28-year-old Linda Sutton, was taken in their van. Her lifeless body was discovered 10 days later in a field in Villa Park, Illinois, mangled with her left breast removed. The Rippers claimed numerous additional female victims in the Chicago region. They employed the same tactic of kidnapping and subjecting the women to ritualistic torture and abuse before killing them by strangling, stabbing, or shooting. On December 6th, 20-year-old Beverly Washington, the Ripper's final victim, was discovered clinging to life by a train track. Her left breast had been removed and her right breast was virtually severed, in addition to other injuries. She survived and provided a precise description of her assailants and the van they were using, which resulted in their arrests. Thomas Corraleus admitted that he and others had abducted women and taken them to Gecht's residence, which was described as a satanic chapel. The victims were ritualistically assaulted and had their breasts removed with a wire garrote, often while they were still alive. According to Corraleus, the guys would then eat a sacramental piece of the cut body parts. The victims were then allegedly executed while Gecht recited passages from the Satanic Bible. Gecht was the only one who maintained his innocence and was the only one convicted of attempted murder and other connected crimes. He was sentenced to 120 years in jail and will be eligible for parole in 2042. The presiding judge labeled him a demon and a monster for his heinous crimes. Thomas Corraleus received a lighter sentence for his cooperation and was released in 2019, but his brother Andrew was executed by lethal injection in 1999 and was the final convict executed in the state of Illinois until capital punishment was abolished in 2011. Spreitzer, dubbed every woman's nightmare by the prosecution, received a death sentence that was eventually converted to life in prison without the possibility of release. Number 8. Walking Man. At 4 a.m. on a late May morning in 2022, 75-year-old Joseph Cromelis, a homeless man, was doused in flammable liquid and set on fire in the 400 block of North Wabash. The suspect fled after committing the act. Cromelis, also known as the Walking Man in Chicago, was on fire for almost 3 minutes before a security guard from Trump Tower used a fire extinguisher to put out the flames. The culprit has been identified as Joseph Guardia by police. Before this encounter, the two men were said to have never met. Guardia was detained on May 27th in the 2400 block of West Belmont Avenue on suspicion of aggravated arson and attempted murder. Guardia told police he thought he was setting fire to a pile of blankets and had no idea there was a person below them. Prosecutors, on the other hand, called that an outrageous lie, as according to police, Cromelis' legs and head were exposed and visible under the blankets. Guardia is also further accused of pouring gasoline from a McDonald's cup onto Cromelis' head. Cromelis is not expected to survive his injuries. Guardia later told authorities that his motivation for the crime was being so angry that he just had to set something on fire. We doubt any of what he said is going to let him off the hook. His trial is still ongoing. Number 7. Hill and Stanton. In January 2019, a 17-year-old Phillips High School student athlete was charged with murder in the death of a transgender escort with whom he had an intimate relationship. On August 30th, 2018, Tremont Hill, a high school basketball standout and father of one, lured Jajane Stanton to an isolated place in the 4000 block of South Calumet Avenue in Bronzeville. It was there that Hill shot 24-year-old Stanton in the head. An investigation was launched and authorities discovered text exchange between Hill and Stanton. Hill had pretended to be 18 years old and told Stanton that he wanted to have a physical relationship with her. They met up at a Southside hotel and had intercourse. The subsequent conversation between them revealed Hill's inner difficulty as a result of Stanton's gender identity. In text messages after their first encounter, Hill informed Stanton that he was confused about his sexuality and that he'd been thinking about self-harm since their last contact. They planned to meet on August 30th, where Hill allegedly murdered his former sweetheart in cold blood. A search warrant was served at the teen's house, yielding a shirt and pants that matched those seen on security videos, as well as small bloodstains on the garments. Hill was charged as an adult and, if convicted, could get life in prison. Number 6. Prime Suspect. Charisma Erzman, a 20-year-old nursing student, was reported missing after she was last seen leaving her Forest View residence on January 23, 2022. She was discovered lifeless with a jacket covering her face in the backseat of her vehicle in the 5900 block of West Iowa Street a few days later. Erzman was pronounced dead at the scene, and the medical examiner's office in Cook County ruled it a homicide by strangulation and smothering. A police investigation identified 24-year-old Richard Chavez as the key suspect in her death. Cell phone records showed that he and Erzman had been communicating online and that the young woman had driven to his Oak Park house on January 23rd. At around 10:40 p.m., a private surveillance camera caught him coming down the sidewalk and going inside with Erzman. She was not observed leaving the house, and the next morning, Chavez drove her car to the site where it was later discovered. He immediately called his brother for a ride. After being arrested, Chavez informed police that he and Erzman had had consensual contact and that she had left his house by the time he awoke. While being imprisoned, Chavez called his parents and told them to get his passport ready in a taped call. The case is still ongoing, and according to the most recent information, Chavez has been denied bail. Number 5. Stealing an ambulance. In April 2022, a man was charged with stealing a Chicago Fire Department ambulance and leading police on an 80-mile or 128-kilometer chase. 46-year-old Benjamin Harrington approached the ambulance as it sat empty and parked on the street outside a fire station at around 4:40 p.m. Thankfully, there were no patients inside when it was stolen. Officers pursued the ambulance down Interstate 55 while the driver sped away at more than 70 miles per hour or 112 kilometers per hour. After 2 hours on the run, a tire on the ambulance blew out and Harrington tried to run away, but he was arrested after a much shorter chase on foot. He was charged with fleeing from police, resisting arrest, and possession of a stolen vehicle. Number 4. 2 Seconds of Freedom. A local drill rapper was assaulted and shot multiple times in July 2021, only seconds after being released from the Cook County Jail. 31-year-old Londre Sylvester, also known as KTS Dre, died after receiving 64 bullet wounds all over his body. Sylvester walked out of the jail and towards a vehicle that had been waiting for him when 2 unidentified shooters arrived in 2 cars and opened fire on him. A 60-year-old woman accompanying the rapper was hit in the knee, while a second woman traveling through the vicinity was injured in the mouth by a bullet. After receiving medical attention, both victims were reported to be in good condition. A Cook County Sheriff's Office processing photo revealed Sylvester with a number of conspicuous tattoos on his body, including a target symbol on his neck and the message, "Kill to Survive." He'd originally been jailed for violating a bail bond after reportedly failing to meet release requirements in a 2020 felony gun case. It's unknown whether the brutal ambush was gang-related, a personal vendetta, or some other type of revenge, and no arrests have ever been made, according to the most recent information supplied to the media. Number 3. Drinking bleach. In March 2017, 24-year-old Yasmin Elder got into an argument with her boyfriend, 26-year-old Darius Ellis. The couple was sitting in a van in West Englewood at 1:43 a.m. when the conversation they were having took a dramatic and deadly turn. Yasmin overpowered Darius and then poured chlorine bleach down his throat. She forced him to swallow the dangerous substance. When a person drinks bleach, the symptoms can range from pain and irritation in the mouth and throat to pain and possible burns in the esophagus, vomiting, convulsing, shock and damage to the gastrointestinal tract and internal organs. Officers who were called to the scene found him lying unconscious on the ground. He was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to the chemicals at 3:26 a.m. and died. Yasmin was arrested later that day at 5:30 p.m. Number 2. Rival gangs. On August 4th, 2020, while shopping in the posh Gold Coast suburb, rapper FBG Duck was shot several times in an incident carried out in broad daylight. The 26-year-old rapper, who went by the stage name Carlton Weekly, suffered injuries to his pelvis, chest, and neck. In the aftermath of the shooting, a video leaked on social media showed a man in a blue tracksuit believed to be Weekly lying face down on the street with 2 officers nearby. In the audio from the tape, the bystander who took the video can be heard saying, "They shot FBG Duck." The rapper, who was a member of the Flyboy gang and signed to Sony Records, was critically injured. He was taken to Northwestern Memorial Hospital and later pronounced dead. 2 others, a 26-year-old lady and a male in his mid-30s, were critically injured in the shooting. Later, they were reported to be alive. In October 2021, a federal indictment was unsealed, revealing the identity of the 5 men arrested and charged with the murder in connection with the incident. They were reported as members of the O-Block Street Gang, which brutally protected its areas on the south side and claimed responsibility for several acts of violence in the city. The perpetrators ranged in age from 22 to 30. Weekly, who frequently rapped about gun violence, was apparently a member of a rival gang. Authorities stated that he had made disparaging remarks regarding O-Block, which was regarded as a possible motive for the shooting. Charles Liggins, Kenneth Robertson, Carlos Alford, Christopher Thomas, and Marcus Smart, according to the indictment, emerged from 2 vehicles and fired roughly 38 rounds at Weekly. They were charged with murder in the assistance of racketeering, assault in the aid of racketeering, and a variety of weapons offenses. If the alleged gangsters are proven guilty, they may face life in jail or the death penalty. Number 1. Wrong place, wrong time. In the spring of 2022, a Chicago street was renamed to honor the memory of a young woman named Kaylin Pryor who was murdered. Just 20 years old, Kaylin Pryor had recently received a modeling contract out of 500 competitors and was on the eve of a promising career when she was killed in November of 2015. She grew up in Evanston and was on her way to catch a bus after spending the day with her grandma in Englewood. Someone opened fire from a passing SUV, killing the young woman who was not believed to be the intended target. According to the most recent reports, no suspects have been apprehended and the model's murder remained unsolved. In April 2022, family and friends returned to the 74th and South May Street intersection to dedicate a sign to Pryor. Alan Scott, the victim's father, had dedicated his life to anti-violence initiatives in the years following her death. He expressed optimism that the billboard will rekindle interest in Pryor's case by reminding people that a $30,000 reward was available for the arrest and conviction of her assailant. Thanks for watching. So, will you be steering clear of Chicago on your next trip? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.